What's going on, baseball fans? How are we doing? So earlier this week, it was reported that Juan Soto rejected a 13-year, $350 million contract extension offer from the Washington Nationals before the lockout. So in this video, I'm going to go over what kind of a contract Juan Soto should get. Are the Nationals a serious contender at re-signing him? And if he does end up hitting the open market, what teams have the best chance at signing Juan Soto in 2025? Let's go talk about it. Before I get started, if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the whatever button, hit all the buttons. First off, let's talk about what kind of a contract Juan Soto should get. If we're taking a look at the biggest contracts in Major League Baseball right now, Mike Trout is the only one to have at least $400 million. And after him, the guys that are making $300 million are Mookie Betts, Francisco Lindor, Fernando Tatis Jr., Bryce Harper, Giancarlo Stanton, Corey Seager, Garrett Cole, and Manny Machado. I think Juan Soto is better than all these guys. Well, maybe right now Mike Trout is better than Juan Soto to a lot of people, but I think by the end of the year, at least in the next couple of years, Juan Soto will be the best player in Major League Baseball. That's just what I think. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. But if we go to Juan Soto's page on Fangraphs, if you go all the way to the bottom, you can see what he has been worth every year going back to 2018. He's played 4 seasons so far, and on here, he is worth at least $141 million. However, that's not accounting for the 2020 season in which it was shortened to 60 games. So if we take a look here, it was right around $20 million, but if he had been on pace for 150 games, you're looking at around $60 million that year. That is just nuts. So that would bring his total to roughly around $180 million so far for his value in his career. If you divide that by 4, you're looking at around $45 million per season on average. And we still have a few more years until he gets to free agency. So who knows what other numbers he could put up. So Juan Soto, I would imagine if he's worth $45 million per season, I think it's absolutely possible he gets anywhere from 35, 40 to even that 45 million per season. So I definitely think it's possible. If Max Scherzer got 40 million per season for a short deal, I think if there's anyone that could make 40 million per season for a long-term deal, it's Juan Soto. So what would a Juan Soto contract look like if he did hit the open market? Well, the first question I have is how long of a contract would he want to sign? Would he want to go the route of, say, Mike Trout, Mookie Betts, and Bryce Harper, where they sign contracts that would bring them to the end of their careers? Or would he rather go the route of, say, Francisco Lindor, Corey Seager, and Manny Machado, where they all signed 10-year deals? If he were to sign a 10-year deal, I would see the AAV being higher. I could see it being anywhere from 45 to 50 million. That could be a contract from 10 years, 450 million to even 500 million, and maybe even higher. If he were to go for a longer contract, say 13 years, I could see the AAV being anywhere from 38.5 million to 40 million. That would be a contract anywhere from 13 years at 500 million to even 520 million. Now let's talk about the teams that have the best chance of signing Juan Soto. Let's start off with the teams that I think are going to be out of the running. All of these teams here are either small market teams or they already have a lot of commitments to big contracts. So the Phillies, they got Bryce Harper, they got JT Realmuto. If you're taking a look at, say, the San Diego Padres, they got Fernando Tatis Jr., they have Manny Machado. The Angels, they have Mike Trout. All of those teams have big contracts, while teams like the Reds, the Guardians, the Orioles, the Rays, those are small market teams that are just not going to do it. And then you got some other teams that, maybe could have the money to afford him, but based off of the way they've spent money in the past, probably not going to. Teams like the Braves, the Cardinals, the Giants. I just don't see these teams signing Juan Soto. Now let's take a look at the teams that I think have a chance at getting Juan Soto. Let's start off with a surprising one, the Arizona Diamondbacks. If we go to their payroll for 2025, they have no commitments to contracts at all for 2025. Madison Bumgarner, who they signed to a big deal not too long ago, he's going to be a free agent after 2024. You do have Zach Gallen, who will be a free agent in 2026. If he does end up blossoming into that ace picture that I think he can be, he should get a big contract then. But with the Diamondbacks, other than that, they got nothing for 2025. So now you might be thinking, well, the Diamondbacks, it's not very often they spend a lot of money. Well, if you go back to 2015, they signed Zach Greinke to a 6-year, $206.5 million deal. Don't forget, years back, they signed Randy Johnson to a big deal at the time. And then there's also one more thing about the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think they are a possible team to get him because remember, when Juan Soto signed with the Nationals as an international free agent, one of the teams that were interested in him were the Arizona Diamondbacks. So for now, because they haven't given out, they haven't shelled out a ton of money over the years, I'll say they are a possibility. How about my Red Sox? Well, I think you have to consider the Red Sox as a possibility because they are a very large market team, but will they go after someone like Juan Soto? Me personally, I don't think they will. If they didn't give the big bucks to Mookie Betts, I just don't see him going after someone like Juan Soto, who could be anywhere from 400 to 500 million. But the Red Sox, again, they're a large market team, and in 2025, the only player as of right now they have a commitment to is Chris Sale, but it's actually not even really a commitment. It's a club option for 2025. And another thing is the Red Sox, even though I don't think they're going to go after someone like Juan Soto, they have given big contracts before. David Price, the most recent, Manny Ramirez, they gave a pretty nice extension to Chris Sale. They have given out big contracts before, but I will say they're a possibility. I don't think they're a good possibility just because that's not really their style. How about the Chicago Cubs? Well, they are going through a bit of a retool right now, and they have some pretty good young players in the minor leagues that definitely could see themselves in the major leagues in 2025. If we go take a look at their payroll for that year, Marcus Stroman will be a free agent after 2024. And if we're looking at their current commitments to money for 2025, you're looking at around $20 million. So I'm sure there are going to be some guys that they would like to sign, possibly to extensions over the next 3 years, but they got a lot of payroll flexibility. And hey, they have been linked with Carlos Correa this past offseason, who should garner a lot of money. So I don't think the Cubs are afraid to spend the big bucks, and they're going to have a lot of payroll room. The biggest contract they have given out in the past was to Jason Hayward, 8 years, $184 million. That's not looking like a great contract right now. So would the Cubs think about that? I mean, if they are considering Carlos Correa, I would imagine they're going to consider Juan Soto. I would put them as a serious contender for all of those reasons. I think the Detroit Tigers are a really interesting possibility for Juan Soto. If we go take a look at the Tigers' payroll for 2025, Miguel Cabrera has a couple of vesting options. Vesting options usually don't happen. I would imagine after 2023, Miguel Cabrera will probably be off of their payroll. But other than that, the only guys they have committed to contracts at that time, Javier Baez, who they just signed, along with Eduardo Rodriguez, who they just signed. Overall, for 2025, they're right under $60 million committed for that year. And with the Detroit Tigers, I think they're also interesting because they have given out big contracts in the past. If we take a look at their biggest contract they've given out, we just mentioned it was Miguel Cabrera, 8 years, $248 million. They've signed other big deals as well. You've had Prince Fielder. There have been big contracts in the Tigers' history. And one other thing to consider, like the Diamondbacks, the Tigers, they were very interested in Juan Soto before he ended up signing with the Nationals. Believe it or not, I'm going to have the Tigers as a serious contender for Juan Soto. And one more thing to mention with the Tigers, sure, they do have some top prospects like Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, who could end up getting some pretty nice deals along the way. But to me, if Juan Soto is sitting out there, I think the Tigers, if you're going to be having all of this talent, this could be a really good team over the next few years. To me, if Juan Soto's sitting there and you got all these guys, you go after Juan Soto. How about the Houston Astros? I think this is another interesting team on this list. If we go take a look at the Astros in 2025, they have a couple of big contracts coming off the books. Jose Altuve and Alex Bregman. That's around $60 million coming off of the books. That's a lot of change to go spend on Juan Soto. As of right now, they have under $20 million, under $40 million committed for that year. hey, they have a lot of payroll flexibility for 2025, and they have given out big contracts before. We just mentioned it. It was Jose Altuve, 5 years, $151 million. Now, I wonder, the only thing that holds me back a little bit with the Astros is they, with the Carlos Correa talks, they have not wanted to go a long length on the contract. They are more into, giving shorter deals with bigger AAVs. So that's why I don't think they're a serious contender. I think they're possible, just because most likely Juan Soto, you're going to be looking at anywhere from a 10 to maybe even a 15-year deal. Would the Astros go that long? Probably not, but there's a lot of payroll flexibility there, so I'll put them as a possibility for right now. When it comes to signing a big free agent, how could we not talk about the LA Dodgers? Now, I know I said earlier, a lot of these teams that are out of the running, they have commitments already to big contracts, but this is the Dodgers here. This is a team, an organization. They got a lot of coin. With the Dodgers in 2025, Trevor Bauer, he's going to be a free agent after 2023. The only thing that I'm worrying about with the Dodgers is they have Walker Buehler as a free agent in 2025 as well. I'm imagining Walker Buehler, the way he's been pitching, he's going to get himself a very nice contract. Even though they do have Mookie Betts on the books, this is only one big contract committed for a long time. And again, it's the LA Dodgers. Overall for 2025, they have, let's see how much it is, $60 million committed for that year. So because of it's the Dodgers, they have tons of payroll always. They have a ton of money. They could definitely throw a lot of money at Juan Soto. I would imagine they would be okay with going with a long-term deal. Man, could you imagine an outfield with Juan Soto and Mookie Betts in it? To me, I think you have to put them as a serious contender. With Steve Cohen as their owner and the way they've been spending lately, I think you just have to consider the Mets as a possibility for Juan Soto. If you're taking a look at 2025 for the Mets, as of right now, the big contracts that they do have on the books, you have Francisco Lindor. Max Scherzer will be coming off the books after 2024. And you also have Starling Marte as well. As of right now, they have a little over $70 million committed for their payroll in 2025. With the Mets, I mean, hey, they have not been afraid to give out big contracts. Obviously, Francisco Lindor and Max Scherzer in the last couple of years. To me, when you have a guy like Steve Cohen running your team, to me, I think the Mets have to be a serious contender. He would stay in the East. I mean, what a market this would be for Juan Soto. To me, this is another big market team that I think have a serious chance at Juan Soto. Let's go to the other side of New York and talk about the Yankees. How could we not talk about the Yankees when it comes to a big ticket player like Mr. Juan Soto? If George Steinbrenner was still running things, I guarantee you Juan Soto would be in a Yankee uniform. But Hal Steinbrenner is running things this time around in Yankee land, so it's a little different these days. For 2025, Garrett Cole, Giancarlo Stanton are locked up to contracts in that year. And as of right now, their payroll commitments for 2025 are a little over $100 million. Now, there's also one more thing to consider. Aaron Judge, he's going to be a free agent after this year. Are they going to want to sign him to a long-term deal? I think it really depends on how he does this year. He has shown in the past that when he's healthy, he's very good, but that's been the problem. Will he be able to stay on the field, or show that he can keep staying on the field? That's going to be a big thing with Aaron Judge. Now, I know Giancarlo Stanton will be coming off the books in 2028 because of the club option, or he could come off the books. So in a couple of years, if you did sign Juan Soto in 2025, at least Stanton would be coming off. But I think there's a lot of question marks right now. I think right now, at this moment in time, I think right now you just have to consider the Yankees a possibility because there's a lot of question marks. Are they going to re-sign Aaron Judge? I think if they don't re-sign Aaron Judge, and then to me, the Yankees are definitely a serious contender. But for right now, yes, and I know the Yankees have money for days, but it's not about the money that they have. It's how they spend the money. Hal Steinbrenner, yes, he has spent the big bucks, but would he put another huge contract on that payroll, especially when he wants to stay under that CBT, where he's shown that he wants to stay under that CBT consistently? So for right now, I think there's just a few question marks here, I'm going to put them as just a possibility for right now, mainly due to the fact of the way they've been spending. Are they going to re-sign Aaron Judge? I think right now, just a possibility. Let's stay in the AL East and talk about the Blue Jays. Could Toronto be a contender for Juan Soto? If we take a look at the Blue Jays, they've actually been spending quite a bit over the last couple of years. Most recently, Kevin Gausman this offseason. Last offseason was George Springer. Don't forget about the extension they signed with Jose Barrios this past season, and don't forget about Hyun-Jin Ryu as well. In 2025, they have 3 guys committed for that year, Springer, Gausman, and Barrios, and taking a look at their payroll commitments at that time, right around $85 million. But there's also a couple other things to consider here. Vlad Jr. is going to be a free agent in 2026, along with Bo Bichette. So those are 2 guys I could see getting some big contracts, especially Vlad. I mean, the way he was this past year, Vlad Jr. could get a massive contract at that time. So for right now with Toronto, yes, they have shown a willingness to spend money, but you got a lot of guys here that are going to be on the payroll at that time. You got Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette that are going to be free agents eventually, but because of the willingness to spend money, I think it's a possibility. You know, they could maybe make a phone call. We'll have to see. Could the Blue Jays get Juan Soto? And last but not least, the Washington Nationals. Could Juan Soto just re-sign with the Washington Nationals? As of right now, that seems like a no-brainer for the Nationals, but remember, they didn't want to lock up Bryce Harper to a long-term deal. They let him go to Philly. Could the same thing happen with Mr. Juan Soto? As of right now in 2025, the only guy that you have on a big contract is Steven Strasburg, $35 million. Patrick Corbin will be coming off the books in 2024. For 2025, as of right now, right around $54 million committed for that year. The Nationals, to me, it's a no-brainer to get this guy locked up. They offered 13 years, $350 million. To me, you're definitely going to have to give a bigger contract than that. The Nationals, I think you have to consider a serious contender because obviously he's with the Nationals. But to me, if they got to come back with another offer. But if 350 is what they're offering right now, I don't know. I'm not sure. Are they going to be willing to go more than that? Would they be willing to go, at least 450 million? I think that's what you're going to have to start there. 350 million. That's just way too low for Juan Soto. But I think because he is with the Nationals now, and they have the payroll flexibility at that time, I think you have to consider them as a serious contender. Yes, they didn't want to give the big bucks to Bryce Harper, but this is Juan Soto we're talking about here. So these are the teams that I think are serious contenders. I think you could put the Yankees up here as well, just because they obviously have the money to do it. I think you have some interesting teams in here as well. Like the Tigers, I think, are really interesting. The Diamondbacks, a possibility because they were in on Juan Soto before he ended up signing with the Nationals as an international free agent. Who knows? Maybe one of these teams down here, they'd be willing to spend the big bucks on Mr. Juan Soto. We'll have to wait and see, but let me know what you think down below in the comments. Who do you think? Which team do you think Juan Soto will sign with if he does hit the open market? Or do you think he just ends up re-signing with the Nationals? But that's all I have for right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.